So, this is a gesture that I would do every time when I was like 6 years old and my parents were trying to take a picture of me. Then I would do this gesture. Do you know what it means? It means wings. You see that? Because oftentimes when we are doing gesture of wings, we'll do it in this way or like in this way, right? But this is my gesture. And this gesture has a long, very, very long history in my life experience. So, unlike most Asian kids, I was very lucky to have a different way of upbringing, a different way of education, a different way of growing up. It's very different from most of the Asian kids, and I was lucky enough to get away from all the unnecessary after class, after school courses, after school cultivation that you do extra math lessons to get a better performance in the next exam. So I was very lucky to get away from that course, and my father sent me to a boarding school when I was very, 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 very young and unable to fend for myself. That was like the first grade of elementary school. My father sent me to a boarding school. It was a school that if I went there, I could only return home every 2 weeks. And I could only stay home for something like for Sunday or like for a weekend, and then I gotta go back to that boarding school. And I spent most of my elementary school years in different kinds of boarding school. And I don't know whether you have stayed in a boarding school or not, but like I'm not even sure about is that the Western boarding school and the Asian boarding school is like the same. I'm not sure, but like in my experience, the boarding schools just like helped me experience a very large amount of freedom in my early lives. And my parents, especially my father, because my father is the main character that raised me up. So he was having a very busy career when I was young, and he earned some money, so I had a different choice to choose different education. But he did it not because he wanted to try something different, but because he just didn't have enough time to teach me. So he chose that kind of boarding schools. And that actually ended up probably the best education idea that he could ever have. Because like the best education that a child could get is no education. It's like releasing your children back in the nature and to learn magic and to learn to listen to the sound of nature, to synchronize with it, and to fully develop your imagination, like your perspective of seeing life in different way, and to get away from the downtown, to get away from cities. Like you can do that when you're very, very young, and it's very beneficial. So, my father sent me to a boarding school, and it was in the suburbs. To get there, I gotta take a bus of like 2 hours from the downtown area. My family lives in downtown, so every time when I left home, I gotta take 2 hours bus to get there, and I live in the dorm with 5 other girls, so it was like 6 girls in a dorm, and it was a very, very like a private school, like kind of like a noble and also like international school, because I met some kind of Spanish girls, and I met some other girls, Indian girls, like it's that kind of school. So yeah. And you gotta have some money if you want to send your children to that school. Yeah, that's it. But on the other hand is that it was also quite kind of rural. So we were in a school that was like very, 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 very large, enormous, with a lot of facilities, complex buildings. They got buildings for students to sleep. They got buildings for teachers to sleep. They got buildings for like something like a recreate time. We got different playgrounds. We got entertaining buildings, and we got a stage. We got a stadium. We got a hall. We got it's like that kind of school that you put little toddlers in kindergarten, elementary schools, and senior school students in the same place. So it was like a very, 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 very big maze-like boarding school. Well, okay, that's like the background information. So I had already told you that Joe and we became friends probably after my enrolling in that school. So it was like I didn't enter that school from the very beginning. I was like something like I forgot how to say that in English, but I just get to that school in the middle. But Joe, being the daughter of the principal of that school, of that whatever, so she was there from the very beginning, and we got to know each other very quickly, and she knew a lot about that school naturally. So she led me to a lot of like forbidden area, or like something like a secret wonderland of that school. Now I'm going to talk about the several adventures, the several discoveries that we had done together. First of all, I want to talk about a bamboo island that belonged to Joe's queendom. Yeah. So that bamboo island was not a big island, was just like a very small island. It's just something, you went from this to this, And then you make a circle, and then that would be the bamboo island. Well, we name it Bamboo Island because there was a bamboo forest on the island, and the island was surrounded by a dead pound, like with that kind of green water. And to get to that island, you gotta take a leap of faith, because there were no bridges or no connections from the land to the island. They're like surrounded by water, right? So in order to get to the island, you gotta take, you just gotta take some jumps or some leaps, you gotta fly to there. And when Joe first showed me that island, she made that jump first, because she was very familiar with that place, but I was not. So that was like a test. So Joe said, like, if you want to be my friend, if you want to have more adventures with me, you got to take a leap of faith. So I take that leap of faith, and I passed that test, and I enter the bamboo island with her. So on that island, there was nothing special actually. Like a lot of bamboos and a lot of mud and some stones. That's it. But what makes it so fanciful was our imagination. Was the way that we saw it. We saw it differently. So, there were a lot of bamboo leaves on the ground, and Joe picked up a bamboo leaf and put it in her hand. And she said, "Wait." And then we just waited there. And then there came some wind. And then Joe said, "Fly." So the bamboo leaves just flew in the air and ascended until it escaped our sight. And Joe said, "You know what? This is magic." You know what? Because we ordered the leaves to fly, so the leaves flew. The leaves flew because of our willpower. Because we want the leaves to fly, so the leaves fly. That's something Joe said. And I think I will never forget. And I think I will never forget that lines. It doesn't matter whether that kind of statement was right or wrong. It probably was wrong because how can that be right? It was just the wind that made it fly, right? But on the other hand, if Joe had never put that leaves in her hand, would the wind ever be able to blow it? Like, if I put it in my hand, certainly when there was wind, the leaves would fly. But if the leaves were on the ground, I'm not sure whether it would fly like it was in my hand. So what I love about Jo is that she had that kind of mindset to believe in the things that most of the people, adults, grown-ups especially, thought was impossible. And I think that was also the magic of childhood, that we all of us used to have when we were a little child, right? And she just built a secret kingdom with me inside that elementary school. That school was surrounded by a lot of greeneries, a lot of forests, mountains. It has a very good natural environment. And that was the thing that inspired me the most. Like, wow, it was just precious, to have been in that place with such an inspiring figure. All right. Now, from Bamboo Island, I want to move on to a midnight adventure that we have done together, me and Joe. Right. So, Joe was kind of something else, Most of the students, as a member of the boarding school, we gotta live together in the dorm building. We gotta live in the same rooms. We gotta live in the same corridors. We gotta live in the same building, and this is the rule. We gotta obey that. But Joe, remember that Joe was the daughter of the principal of that school. So she lived with her parents in a villa. So because that school was a very big school, and their villa was right inside the school. So there were also some other kinds of teachers that live in that school as well. Okay. So Joe didn't need to live in the dorm as we do, but I gotta live in the dorm. Yeah, because I had no privilege in that school. All right. And we always had a dorm lady for the same grade or like for the same group of students, to be in charge of students, to execute the principles, to execute the rules, to make sure that we did what we were supposed to do. Okay. Now, there was some specific rules that didn't allow us to walk around freely during the night, naturally, for our safety, right? But Joe was something else. Joe didn't need to obey the rules, and I became her friend. So there were times she just, when it got dark outside, when we all went back to the dorm, then Joe we came up. I remember I live in the ground floor. So Joe would sneak out at the corridor, like outside, and knock on the window. We have that kind of screen window that block mosquitoes from outside. And she would, pat on that kind of windows and hiss at me. But, I live with other 5 girls in the same room, and they all look at her. But nobody dared to say something because she had the privilege. And I would open the window and I would fly over it and went out with Joe. And the dorm lady would be like walking around the building, walking around the lobby to see if there were students that didn't obey the rules. So we gotta, we were like little animals So we gotta crouch ourselves and sneak out the area until nobody could see us anymore. Yeah. And then we would just like wander around the school. Nobody, like during those free weekends, nobody was inside the teaching buildings. Nobody was inside those kind of playgrounds. Like everybody stayed in their place. Whereas we were the exceptions that were free to roam around, you know. We were the only ones, except the security guards. Okay, I will get to that later. But anyways, I escaped from the dorm buildings, and I had some adventures with Joe. I didn't remember what specific things that we would do, but because Joe was an expert of that school, so she would show me a lot of places that I don't know, like she would hide her snacks in the curtains of a stage. That stage was inside the hall. So she would take me to that hall, and we would, you know, like stand on the stage and eat snacks together. And then she would also take me to the kindergarten, and we would, you know, like break into the kindergarten, and you know, doing nothing inside their dancing room, their ordinary classrooms, and just like doing nothing. And there was a time that it got fully dark outside, you know, completely dark. And we were still inside the school buildings. Wow, it was just so flashing back to that corridors. The lights were not working. We were just like, I was getting very afraid, scared, spooky, because it was so dark outside. But Joe was not afraid at all. And she encouraged me to be fearless as well. And there was a piano practice room. So Joe knew how to play piano, and we would break into that piano room as well. And I would listen to her concerto. She was good at it. And then we would sit on the floor. She had a torch, so she would turn on the torch, and we would play birds on the walls with our hands. You know, you see that? This gesture would turn into birds on the walls, right? You do this gesture, right? Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That was beautiful. That was just beautiful. But it was kind of lonesome at the same time. And Joe didn't seem to have a lot of friends. Me, neither. And we just stayed together. We live in our world. You know, we live in our imagination. We do that kind of bird things. And also, I introduced her my specific gesture of making wings as well. I still don't understand why I would do this gesture anyway. Isn't this funny? I think this is like you cross your arms, like one of the knights with Arthur, the round table. I don't know, I don't remember. But like, yeah. We would just do all that kind of imagining things, you know. Wonderful. It's just wonderful. Sometimes language fails to describe that kind of magic that you feel at that spot. At that spot with that special person. It was just hard to describe. But yeah. And this gesture, it just had some kind of magic itself. You know? Shit, I don't remember. Like, yeah, or this one. But this one feel, you know, exclusively special to me. Like whenever you feel like you need some courage, you need some imagination, inspiration, just do this gesture. It help you. I guarantee you it help you. Because it helped me a lot of times. Now, I just stay in that school for a very limited amount of time. Like 2 semesters or like a year and a half. I don't remember anymore, but it was just a short period that I in that school. The time that I spent in that boarding school was very limited. It was probably just like a year, or it definitely was less than 2 years. Because it was not a good school regarding to something like your scholar performance, like having good grades, you know. Yeah, it was not a good school on that part. So my father was considering sending me to like an Ivy League kind of elementary school, preparing me for a better education in a senior high school, junior high school. You understand that, right? Because if you can't get good grade, you can't get to a good college, naturally. So I left that school on the 2nd grade. So I gotta say bye-bye to my dear friend Joe. Yeah, I can't decide that, you know. I was only a little kid. So I was sure to leave. But before my departure, we went outside the school together. Like not just the 2 of us, like with her parents. Not her parents, not even her parents, because her parents were kind of old. I believe it was her relative, or something like her uncle or like a brother. It was a young man. Yeah, it was a young man. And that man's got a car, and he was waiting for us outside the school gate. I remember we were still having some kind of lessons. Yeah, and that a teacher just like knock on our door and beckoned to Joe that hey, your relative, your brother, your uncle was waiting for you, so you don't need to take classes anymore. And then Joe, knowing that I was about to leave in a couple of weeks, somehow used her part of her privilege to get me out of that school as well. Yeah. That was how she did it. Yeah. Can you believe that? Because I just fucking went out with her and get in that car with her brother or uncle or whosoever. And we went to a hot spring together. Yeah. Because it was in the suburbs. And we had something like a hot spring, like swimming pool, like something like for your health. Yeah. So we just went to that place together. I didn't even take my swimming suit, so I just went into the water with my t-shirt, probably. Yeah. Nobody cared. And then I remember we went to a mountain. We climbed the mountain together with her brother. And at the bottom of that mountain, there was a Madonna, It was back in the day, 2008, 2007, Madonna was not that common in our countries. Yeah. I'm probably wrong, but yeah, as a kid, not that common for a kid, Madonna. And it was kind of expensive as well. But her relative took us to the Madonna, and we had something very delicious to eat. Some apple pie or some pineapple pie, some fries, some chips, some hamburgers, and Coca-Cola. Yeah. That was a big meal for a kid, back in the day. That was a fabulous experience. And then we got back in the car. And here came the punchline, the most fabulous part. So Joe took some tomato sauce, that kind of package, and we got mineral water. So she put the tomato sauce into the water, and shake until the water turned into different color. And then she handed that water to me and said, you need to take this magical medication before leaving our magical school, because if you take this medicine, if you take this herb, you wouldn't you wouldn't know how to use your imaginative power from then on and forever. I just love her. Oh my God. So yeah, I took that water. Wow, the taste was really, really weird. It was kind of sour. It was kind of sweet, and it tastes a little bit like tomato. Wow, it was just fucking weird. But I took that water anyway. Yeah. That was a ceremony, That was a ceremony that a queen will do when she wants a knight, like putting that sword on her shoulder, something like that, That was a ceremony. That was a magical ceremony to get you into Joe's imagination. Wow, that was... Wow. she drank that water too with me. We drank that water together. So we both knew how to use magic. Seriously. So her relative's car, there was the window on the top. So we just, pulled that window, and we stood at our seat, and we just like raised our arms because we were in a suburb. Because we were in the suburbs, and the weather, it was a late afternoon just like this one, and the sun was just like amazing, and our car was passing through rows of trees, and we were like tilting our heads up like this, and we just let the wind blow our cheeks, our hair, our eyelashes, and we're just like look at the sky, and with those swaying leaves as decoration, as a frame, we just look at that picture, we just look at that work of nature. And I remember that scene forever, God. Then, a few weeks later, I left. So Jo herself was a great artist. She knew how to play piano. She was a great painter as well. She actually taught me how to paint. Yeah. And she painted it much better than me. Well, so I left all of a sudden. Yeah, I just left all of a sudden. We don't really have a chance to say goodbye or do that kind of mushy thing together. I just left. But I remember she gave me one of her painting books, something you can use to practice your painting. She gave me one of that thing, and she wished me all the best. Yeah. And later on I went to another boarding school, and then I became very, very good in studies, and I went to a better junior school. I grew up. So that's today's story. I hope you will like it, because I like it very much myself. And I hope you could keep these wings in your heart forever. Never forget that once upon a time, you have wings. You have wings yourself. You know how to fly. See you next time.